ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 1 of the series What If Izuku Had the Most Feared Quirk? So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Izuku was mugged a lot. It could have been that he just had that kind of innocent face that made criminals and bullies think he was an easy target. As they all soon found out, Izuku was no pushover. He was mugged so often that the police investigated him for vigilantism, but they soon found that he was just really unlucky. Or really lucky, at least from Izuku's point of view. He was currently pinned against a wall, a knife to his throat. Try to move and you die, you got that? The man asked. A trickle of blood dripped down Izuku's neck. He smiled. An eye for an eye. A minute later, and Izuku was leaving the alleyway and calling the police. It's me. Yes, it's the same alleyway as yesterday. I know, I'm sorry. He's unconscious. I don't know, he just collapsed. Yeah, I got grazed by his knife, but I'm fine. See you in a minute, Tsukachi. Izuku put his phone away, sitting on the curb. A single police car pulled up, and one man stepped out. You're pretty lucky that your quirk is more powerful than your mother's. If you could only pull things closer, you wouldn't be able to get out of these situations. Nezu said. Izuku nodded. I know. I'm like the perfect unwilling vigilante. The mugger was bundled into the back of the police car. I actually recognize him. We've been after this guy for a while. He's been slipping through our fingers because of his quirk. Some kind of heightened intelligence, we think. Anyway, I'll drive you home. You're bound to get into at least 3 more muggings before reaching the end of the street. Izuku nodded, getting into the passenger side of Tsukachi's car. Izuku waved to the detective as he drove away, walking back up to his apartment. Izuku greeted his mother, reassuring her that he was fine. He went upstairs and sighed, flopping onto his bed. Entrance exams tomorrow, he muttered. Izuku was excited for the UA entrance exams. He wanted to become a hero, more than anything else. He was actually friends with UA's principal, Nezu. Izuku turned to his computer, bringing up his emails. Speak of the devil. He muttered. Hybrid Enigma. Greetings once again, my friend. How have you been the past week? Izuku smiled, typing out a reply. Analytical Bunny. I've been well, although I have missed our chats. Hybrid Enigma. I have also missed this. I'm happy to say that all preparations for the entrance exams have been finished, so we will be able to resume our regular schedule. Analytical Bunny. Excellent news. Any tips? Izuku chuckled darkly to himself. They had made a game of finding the other's true identity. It took Izuku a week to find out his friend was the smartest being on the planet. Nezu still hadn't found who Analytical Bunny really was. Hybrid Enigma. Oh, of course, you're a student. I really should have pieced that together by now. Analytical Bunny. You really should, Nezu. Hybrid Enigma. I'll be keeping an eye out for you tomorrow. Analytical Bunny. Just so you know, I will pass both exams into the hero course. You just need to figure out whether I scored the highest as I should, or scored lower to throw you off. Hybrid Enigma. A bet then? Analytical Bunny. I'm listening. Hybrid Enigma. If I find who you are before, let's say the sports festival, you must concede the competition. Analytical Bunny. Winner takes all. Interesting. Very well. However, if I win this bet on top of the original competition, no school for Class 1A for an extra week after the sports festival. Hybrid Enigma. Such high stakes? I could get in trouble for that from a certain grumpy homeroom teacher. Analytical Bunny. You're the one that lifted them first. An eye for an eye. Hybrid Enigma. So you like to say? Very well. I'll take those odds. Nezu left shortly after their weekly chess match, which Izuku won, adding to his increasing score of 63 to 45 in Izuku's favor. Izuku headed downstairs at his mother's call, sitting down for dinner. How was school today? Did anything good happen? Inko asked. Izuku shook his head. Today was pretty normal. I am excited for the entrance exams, though. Inko laughed. I think we both know you'll pass just fine. Izuku nodded, wolfing down his food. Tomorrow is going to be fun. Izuku wandered into UA, walking alongside the rest of the hero hopefuls entering UA's auditorium. The greenette sat patiently in his seat, and was slightly irked when Bakugo sat down next to him. Don't talk to me, and we won't have an issue," the blonde said. Izuku nodded, returning his attention to the stage below. Present Mike stepped from behind the curtain, his blonde hairstyle easily recognizable, even from a distance. Hey listeners. Welcome to UA. Now, I'm sure you're all excited to get to the exam, but I need to explain a couple of things first. The white wall behind the hero turned out to be a massive screen, displaying 4 silhouettes with a simple numbering system. Now, the aim of the exam is to earn as many villain points as possible. How do you acquire villain points, you ask? By beating up the villain robots we've prepared, of course. Izuku quickly read the information on the pamphlet he'd found on his seat. The exam was quite simple. Beat up the robots. Earn points. Some robots are worth more than others. Avoid the obstacle robot. Don't hurt the other examinees. Izuku grinned to himself. With his quirk, this would be a piece of cake. He didn't hear the rest of Present Mic's explanation, instead choosing to plan to himself. He stood along with his section of the hall and headed to testing area B. Izuku hopped off the bus 10 minutes later and began stretching his arms. He looked around at his competition. Exhaust in his legs, speed quirk, belt with a lens in the center, some kind of belly button light, laser perhaps, pads on fingers, emitter of some kind. Influences objects outside of the body. Interesting. 5-point contact. Izuku could feel his quirk nestled in his chest, waiting to lash out at its first opponent. The massive doors to the exam site opened, and Izuku sprinted inside, his quirk giving him a significant speed boost. The heroes of UA watched the screens with great interest. There appear to be a number of excellent applicants. Those with raw power, intel gathering, and mobility are drawing ahead. Those with all 3 are outstripping even them. A small creature said. He tapped at a few keys on the pad before him. The applicant who intrigues me most, however, is this. A single image expanded to fill most of the screen on the wall, showing a robot's point of view. The robot in question lashed out at a green-haired boy who just came around the corner. Its fist connected, and the boy's head snapped back. But that was all. The boy looked straight at the robot again and grinned. An eye for an eye, he said. The feed cut out. What happened? Who was that? A cowboy asked. The creature smiled, bringing the boy's profile to his screen. Izuku Midoriya. Quirk, absolute authority. He can push and pull objects of considerable size and weight around him. He can also increase the speed of his attacks with it by tugging parts of his body, and even run faster than a few speed quirks by pulling his entire body forwards. It seems to me that he has an incredibly potent telekinesis quirk. However, something seems off, the animal said. A skinny blonde man and a muscular hobo each looked at the new screen showing. Izuku with different thoughts. He's rational. He's strong. He's fast. He isn't flashy, he just gets the job done. He's smart. The hobo grinned. I want Midoriya in my class. The blonde skeleton was staring nervously at the green net on screen. Is it possible? It could just be telekinesis. But if he has been given multiple quirks, then that would mean. But it could be skill. I can't just confront the boy. The animal chuckled. I had a feeling you'd say that, Aizawa. I'll put him in your class. The animal looked back at the many windows on the screen, showing various applicants. Of the 48 intelligence quirks that applied, which ones are passing? Of those, which ones are viable? I will find you, analytical bunny. Izuku felt a shiver run down his spine. He grinned to himself. You'll never catch me, Nezu. You'll be concentrating on the intelligence quirks, or the quirks that need a heightened intelligence to function well. Telekinesis isn't one of those. It just needs good concentration, not high intelligence. Izuku smacked away another robot, slamming the 3-pointer into a pair of 2-pointers, destroying all 3. Izuku lifted the rubble around him with his telekinesis and shredded a group of 1-pointers with the spinning shrapnel. He hopped from windowsill to windowsill, scaling the buildings with the aid of absolute authority. Izuku looked over the rooftops at the 0-pointer in the distance. He let out a low whistle. That's a little overkill. He grinned. I like it. Izuku sprinted on top of the buildings, using his quirk to run faster, jump further, and land faster. He quickly reached the building right next to the robot, looking down at the road below. Anyone in the way? He muttered. Izuku spotted a brunette almost buried under a pile of rubble, and wasted no time in pulling the concrete off of her and pulling her to her feet with absolute authority. She looked around in confusion, wondering what was going on. Run! Izuku shouted, waving to her when she looked up and jumping onto the robot's shoulder. He watched her flee the scene and immediately got to work. Which is to say, he ripped its head off with the twitch of a finger. Its body promptly collapsed, just as Izuku floated to the ground using his quirk. The crowd just outside of the robot's kill zone stared in amazement. The practical exam is now over. Present, Mike yelled. Izuku heard the postman slide a letter through their door, so he pulled it towards him through the house and up the stairs to his room. There was something small, round, and heavy inside the envelope, so he pulled it along with that. Izuku tore the letter open and let the disc drop onto his desk. A holographic screen projected itself onto his wall, showing the number 1 hero. I am here, as a projection, the hero said. All Might. But isn't this from UA? The hero continued talking. You may be wondering why I am here. Well, you are in fact looking at UA's newest faculty member. Now, I will be the one giving you your score, young Midoriya. You did superbly in the written exam, with full marks. Very well done. Your practical exam was almost as good as that, with 128 villain points. That is already enough to get into UA's hero course, but there was also a hidden scoring system. Rescue points. Due to your actions, young Uraraka was saved from the zero-pointers rampage. You also prevented more property damage by making the robot fall into a section it had already destroyed. You were awarded 70 rescue points. Adding that to your total score gives you an incredible 198 points. Welcome to your Hero Academia. The projection cut off. Izuku smiled, leaning back in his chair. I did it. Izuku spent the 2 months between his acceptance and his first day training. He went on long runs. He lifted heavy weights both with and without his quirk. However, lifting with his quirk required something much heavier than just his wrist weights. Izuku walked into UA nearly half an hour early, just to get a good idea of where everything was. He found 1A pretty easily. He could hear the angry screams of a certain rabid blonde from a mile away. Izuku opened the door and watched the spectacle before him. Could you please take your feet off the desk? It's incredibly disrespectful to our upperclassmen, not to mention the people that made the desk. A tall, bespectacled boy pleaded. Bakugo just snorted. What school shoved that stick up your rear? He asked. The boy straightened his back, adjusting his glasses. Let us start over. I am Tenya Ida of Semi-Private Academy. It's a pleasure to meet you. That last part didn't sound so sure. Izuku thought. Ida turned and noticed Izuku in the doorway. It's you. I am Tenya Ida of S. Izuku nodded, raising his hand. I heard. I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you, Ida. Ida shook Izuku's hand and began to talk about the exam. I saw you during the exam. You were incredibly skilled with your telekinesis quirk. I also saw that you took out the zero-pointer to save that girl. Bakugo turned to scowl at Izuku, opening his mouth. Izuku smiled at the blonde. He shut his mouth and looked away. He took out the zero-pointer? What kind of crazy telekinesis does he have? The other kids in the class began chattering amongst themselves. Izuku felt a presence behind himself. It's you. The green boy. Izuku turned, smiling at the brunette. Well done for making it in, he said. The girl smiled. Thanks for saving me. That was pretty scary. If you're here to make friends, then I suggest you leave. Everyone but Izuku in the class jumped, staring at the yellow sleeping bag in the doorway. The bag stood up and opened, revealing a tired hobo man. It took you all 4 seconds to quiet down. Only one of you noticed me in the first place. My name is Shota Aizawa. I'll be your homeroom teacher for the next 3 years. Now, put these on and head outside. The man pulled out several PE uniforms from the sleeping bag, laying them on the desk. He then left the room, wandering down the corridor. Izuku pulled a uniform into his hands and left the room after their teacher, briskly walking down the corridor after him. Somehow, to Aizawa's surprise, Izuku was already at the field, with his PE clothes on, doing stretches. I assume we're doing a test of some sort? You want to see how well we can use our quirks? Will we be doing the standardized fitness tests but with powers? That way we can compare how much they aid our strength. Aizawa paused in shock, but quickly nodded. Izuku continued his stretches until the rest of the class arrived. It took you all, minus Midoriya, 8 minutes to change and get down here. You'll need to be much faster than that if you want to last here. Every second is crucial. Now, on to what we'll be doing today. You are all familiar with the standardized fitness tests? You'll be doing them again, but this time with your quirks. Most of the class chattered amongst themselves excitedly. Midoriya, Aizawa said. Izuku stepped forwards. What was your furthest throw in middle school? He asked. Around 65 meters. Izuku said. Aizawa tossed him a small ball with sensors all over it. Throw this as hard as you can using your quirk. Do what you like, just don't leave the circle. Aizawa gestured to the circle on the field beside him. Izuku nodded, stepping forwards. If I boost my throwing speed and then push the ball further with absolute authority, I can feasibly get it into space. Izuku pulled his arm back, then used his quirk to push his arm forwards faster than he normally could. Then he grabbed the speeding ball and pushed it as far as possible. Aizawa raised the tablet. Several thousand kilometers and counting. Impressive, he said. We get to use our quirks as much as we want. A yellow-haired kid asked. This is going to be fun. A pink girl said. Aizawa immediately frowned. You think this is fun? Then how about I make it even more fun? Whoever scores last out of all of the tests is expelled, he said. A few of the students with non-physical quirks became worried. Why you can't do that? It's only the first day? It's not fair, Uraraka said. Villains aren't fair. Disasters aren't fair. It's up to heroes to push past that and make it fair. Plus ultra. Now, let's get started, Aizawa said. Throughout each of the tests, Izuku scored the best in each of them, even outlasting Ida in the endurance run or Azui in the long jump. As it turned out, Aizawa had been lying about the expulsion, much to the invisible girl's Hagakure, Izuku thought, relief. Well, that's all for today. If you want to go home or stay here, I don't really care. Just don't disturb me. Aizawa crawled into his sleeping bag and rolled away. Today was fun. I wonder what we're doing tomorrow. Izuku found out exactly what they were doing tomorrow the next day. I am coming through the door like a normal person. The class stared at All Might, who was most definitely not coming through the door like a normal person. The number one hero strode across the room to stand before the class. Greetings, fledgling heroes. I will be your hero informatics teacher this year. You can think of this as Hero ING 101. Today, we will be doing this. The hero pulled out a cue card with battle training in big bold letters written on it. Izuku's classmates chattered excitedly to one another, while Izuku just stared in awe at his idol. Now, part of being a hero is looking like one, so you're going to need these. All Might pressed the button on a remote, opening up 20 panels on the wall. Take your numbered case and change into your costumes. Once you're ready, meet me at ground beta. All Might raced from the room, his heavy footsteps fading into the distance. So that was All Might, Izuku muttered. Around 10 minutes later, everyone but Izuku was stood before the symbol of peace. Ito was in a futuristic set of armor, looking around for the unmistakable green hair. Where'd Midoriya go? Uraraka asked. Izuku came running through the corridor, adjusting his gloves. Am I the last one? Sorry, I've got so many bits and pieces. His costume was primarily a dark green jumpsuit and red utility belt, his signature bright red shoes still on his feet. Izuku also had long, elbow-length gloves that had the fingertips missing on his right hand. Wow, your costume is really cool, Uraraka said. Izuku smiled, rubbing the back of his head. Thanks. I wasn't sure how I wanted to design it, so I just went pretty basic. What's up with the right hand, though? She asked. Izuku smirked to himself. I'm not just going to reveal all my tricks, although it's mainly for using touch screens, or if I need to find a pulse or feel the temperature of something. Uraraka nodded understandingly. My quirk needs my fingertips bare, so I just went without gloves. Ida is completely covered, though, she remarked. Izuku turned to the suit of armor standing next to him. Your costume looks similar to a hero I know about, he said. Ida nodded, striking a dramatic pose. I know exactly who you refer to. He is my inspiration, as well as my older brother, he said proudly. All Might finished his preparations and returned his attention to the class. Right, now that everybody is here, may I have your attention? Everyone's chattering ceased immediately, eager to hear what the number one hero had prepared for them. You will be put into pairs by drawing lots. Each pair will be assigned to either the villain team or the hero team title. Then, you will take turns facing off against one another within the villain's hideout. He began. Villains, you will be doing your utmost to defend a weapon within the base. If the heroes touch the weapon, you lose. However, if you wrap the heroes in capture tape, or if time runs out for the heroes, you achieve victory. Heroes, you will be working to capture either the villains or the weapon. Are there any questions? Ida's hand shot into the air. Yes, young Ida? Is using lots really the best option? Should we be paired up using our quirks compatibility instead? Izuku decided to speak up. Heroes often don't get to decide who they work with in the field, so this could be replicating that. Ida lowered his hand. I had not thought of that. Please continue. All Might pulled out 2 boxes, pulling a ball from inside each. The first match was Izuku and Uraraka as the heroes against Ida and Bakugo as the villains. Memorizing the floor plan with so little time is difficult, Uraraka remarked. Izuku nodded, going through several strategies in his head at once. Bakugo will most likely come for me first. Will you be alright if I keep him occupied while you go after Ida and the bomb? Uraraka nodded, giving the green net a thumbs up. That's fine by me. I'll do my best to capture the bomb quickly. Izuku nodded, smiling at his partner. Hero team, enter. All Might said through the comms. Izuku and Uraraka used a combination of their quirks to fly up to the 3rd floor. It's more likely it's hidden on a higher floor, but won't be at the very top. That's too obvious. As if to prove Izuku's point, Bakugo released a series of explosions from around the corner. Where are you, Deku? He screamed. Uraraka gave Izuku a silent thumbs up and crept away, while the greenette stepped out from his hiding place, whistling to catch the angry blonde's attention down the corridor. There you are, you creep. He growled, stalking forwards. Creep? That's pretty harsh coming from you, Blasty. Izuku chuckled. The Pomeranian just growled, charging towards Izuku, his hands behind him, propelling himself forwards with the blasts. Bakugo hammered his right fist into Izuku's stomach, making the smaller team gasp, stepping back. An eye for an eye. Izuku slammed his elbow into the blonde's midsection twice as hard, and with the aid of his quirk, launching his opponent away. Izuku stood back up, taking a ready stance and waiting for the blonde to get to his feet. Bakugo choked on the air, staggering to his feet, glaring fearfully at Izuku. The greenette just stood in place, waiting for his opponent to charge. Bakugo wasted no time in blasting himself towards Izuku, spinning around to execute a flying kick. Izuku caught the kick on his forearm, grabbing the boot in his other hand and throwing the explosive boy back down the corridor. Izuku's earpiece crackled to life. Midoriya, I found Ida, 4th floor. The bomb is at the back of the building in the big open room, she said in a hushed voice. Izuku hummed thoughtfully. He'll probably avoid engaging in combat with you, instead running around to keep the bomb itself away from your touch. Side note, include something in your costume that can break concrete or tarmac to give you ammo. Try being sneaky. For now, keep out of his sight and keep quiet. There are pillars in that room, right? Izuku didn't hear the reply, as Bakugo had decided on his next attack. Ignoring me, huh? Well, I'm sure you know how my quirk works, being such a stalker and all. I sweat nitroglycerin, which I can ignite on my palms. That's what makes my explosions. But what do you think happens if a ton is gathered up and detonated at once? Bakugo asked, raising one of his gauntlets that were definitely not for decoration. Izuku sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. And I assume you haven't the slightest idea of how my quirk works? He asked. Bakugo snorted. Why should I care? You can move sheet about with your mind, boo-hoo. He raised his right hand to the pin on the left gauntlet. All Might chose that moment to intervene. Young Bakugo, stop. That attack will kill him. Bakugo grinned ferally. He'll be fine as long as he dodges. Bakugo pulled the pin, grinning at his opponent. Until, of course, the massive explosion changed course and engulfed the blonde instead. Izuku just stood there, his right hand raised, his quirk controlling the flames. My quirk is called Absolute Authority for a reason. Never use a large-scale attack on a telekinesis user if you don't know whether they can turn it back on you or not. Izuku sighed. The flames quickly died out, leaving a toasty Bakugo with a slightly burnt costume. You motherfather, he coughed out. Izuku wrapped his capture tape around the blonde, just as All Might called out the hero's victory. Hero team wins. Izuku looked up in confusion. Uraraka must have captured or incapacitated Ida just as I did, or she might have gotten the bomb at the perfect moment. Izuku dragged a semi-comatose Bakugo back to the observation room. He was quickly joined by Ida and Uraraka. Did you capture Ida or the bomb? He asked. Ida looked down shamefully. I caught Ida. He was monologuing, so I just jumped him with the capture tape. I was just about to touch the bomb when you captured Bakugo. What happened to him, by the way? Uraraka asked cheerfully. Karma. Izuku said simply. Aizawa walked into homeroom, and was pleasantly surprised when everyone was already in their seats and waiting for him. Good, you've learned. Anyway, you'll be doing something important today. The class tensed up. You'll be picking a class representative, he said with a dead expression. Izuku winced as practically everyone leapt into the air, clamoring to be chosen for the position. I don't care how you choose, just do it before homeroom ends. I have another announcement, Aizawa said, squatting in the corner of the room for a quick nap. Ida quickly quieted the shouting and proposed an idea. How about we vote? I know we do not know each other very well, but doesn't that prove that anyone with more votes is best suited to the position? The class agreed with his reasoning, and everyone wrote their vote on a slip of paper. Izuku voted for Ida, and the results are Midoriya in first with 5 votes, and Yaoyorozu in second with 3 votes. That means Midoriya is class rep, and Yaoyorozu is vice rep. Who the hell voted for Deku? Bakugo screamed. It's better than voting for you. A blonde boy with a lightning streak said. Izuku sighed. I'm not cut out for class rep. Aizawa stood back up at the podium. All right, now that is over with. You'll be going off campus to a special facility supervised by myself, All Might, and one other hero for rescue training tomorrow morning. That will be all. Izuku sighed, placing his tray on the table next to Uraraka, opposite Ida. I don't know if I'm the right person for class representative, he said, slumping down in his seat. Uraraka laughed. You were amazing in the battle trial, and you came first in the entrance exams. I'm sure you'll do amazing, she said. Ida nodded in agreement. I agree. That is why I voted for you after all, he said. Izuku sighed, looking down into his Katsudon bowl. A piercing alarm cut off any further conversation. Warning, this is a level 3 alarm. Panic quickly spread amongst the students in the cafeteria. Ida caught the arm of an upperclassman. What is level 3? He asked. It means someone has broken onto the main campus. This has never happened in all my years here, he said, pulling away. Izuku was squashed between the window and a crowd of bodies. The greenette frowned at the chaos outside. Are they reporters? How did they get in? Some kind of disintegration quirk it looks like. The gate is just a pile of ash. But would a reporter really risk losing their job by using such an easy-to-identify quirk? Then it's someone else. Why the main gate, though? Why not burrow under or through a section of the wall? It's a distraction. They're on campus, looking for something in particular. A student? Information? Izuku muttered to himself. The crowd had already dispersed and calmed down, thanks to Ida. Later, in homeroom, Izuku decided to make his first and last announcement as class rep. I think Ida should have the position of class representative. I'm sure you all saw how he handled the situation, which is why I think he's perfect for the job. Are there any objections? The class shook their heads. Ida will be a great class rep. Yeah, go emergency exit, Ida. Emergency exit. Ida swapped places with Izuku. Thank you, everyone. I'll do my best to be a great class representative. The next day, Izuku was stood outside the bus watching Ida order everyone into lines, giving them the seating plan he'd made. It's not that kind of bus, Izuku muttered to himself. Ida nearly cried when he got on last and found out his seating plan was useless. Don't worry about it, Ida, Izuku said, patting his shoulder. Everyone chatted amongst themselves during the bus ride. Izuku sat thinking to himself, trying to figure out what really happened yesterday afternoon. Midoriya, Azui said. Izuku turned to the frog girl, smiling slightly. What is it, Azui? Call me Tsu, she said. Izuku nodded. I often say what's on my mind. She continued. Your quirk is quite strange. Izuku tilted his head. How so? He asked. Tsu put a finger to her lips. Well, you say it's telekinesis, but I've never heard of a telekinesis quirk that can control elements or increase a person's strength and speed, she explained. Izuku laughed. Well, there's got to be a first time for everything. My quirk is stupidly powerful, I will admit that. And it's mega flashy too. Perfect for hero work, not like my hardening, Kirishima said. Izuku shook his head, a grin on his face. I think your hardening is awesome. Definitely a heroic quirk, he said. The bus slowed to a stop just as the conversation ended, and Elizawa got up from where he had been sleeping, ushering the students off of the bus. Uraraka almost screamed in joy when she saw the other hero that would be teaching them today. It's 13. I love 13, she said. Izuku chuckled to himself. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the USJ, 13 said. Izuku looked up, and sure enough, There was a huge domed building that looked similar to Universal Studios Japan. This is the unforeseen simulation joint. Not Universal Studios then. Today, you will be doing rescue training. Now, come on inside, and I'll explain today's activities to you all. 13 led the inside, alongside an irritated Izawa. 13 held up 3 fingers to their homeroom teacher, muttering something to him. The space hero turned back to the class. Now, as I'm sure most of you know, my quirk is called Black Hole. It sucks in and destroys anything it comes into contact with. You've used it to save people from disasters hundreds of times. Uraraka said. The hero nodded. Indeed I have. However, if not used carefully, my quirk can very easily harm, or even a threat to people's life. In Aizawa's test, you found the limits of your powers. In All Might's lesson, you learned to fight with your quirks. Here, you will be learning how to save people with them. The class gave 13 a round of applause, but was cut short by a surge of electricity around the lighting system, cutting out the main lights, along with the sensors. A purple mass formed in the courtyard below the stairs, drawing the students' attention. A single hand pushed through the purple mist, pulling it aside and letting a man through. A portal, Izuku thought. Many more dangerous-looking people stepped out of the portal, forming a line beside the first man, who was covered in dismembered hands. Is this like the entrance exam? Has the lesson already started? Kirishima asked. No, those are real villains. Get back. Aizawa yelled. Be villains? Kaminari muttered. 13, protect the students. Get everyone outside. I'll hold them off. Izuku stepped forwards. Mr. Aizawa, your fighting style is more suited to one-on-one fights and surprise attacks. If you go down there. Aizawa pulled his goggles over his eyes, clutching his capture weapon in his fist. You can't be a hero with just one trick. Eraserhead leapt from the stairs, charging the villains below. Izuku watched several shooting quirks get ready, but then ultimately fail in the face of Aizawa's own quirk. The Greenette followed his classmates, ushering them along. The same purple portal from earlier appeared before them, blocking the path to the exit. It formed into a thin shape, manifesting glowing yellow eyes. Greetings. We are the League of Villains. It may be presumptuous of us, but we have let ourselves in so that All Might, the symbol of peace, can take his last breath. 13 stood before the students, her arm extended, the cap on her pointer finger open. I will not let you stop us, she said. Bakugo and Kirishima jumped forwards, only angering the portal user with a mutter of that was close before he transported them away. I'd almost forgotten. You may be students, but you are excellent golden eggs. It is my job to scatter you and torture you all to death. The villain surged forwards, and Izuku fell through a portal. The Greenette's eyes narrowed. Interesting. Izuku fell into the flood zone of the USJ, and he used his quirk to fly into the deck of the ship, avoiding any of the villains in the water. He was soon joined by Tsu and Mineta. Izuku looked into the water. 30 villains this side of the boat. 60 total. That's perfect. Izuku reached out with his mind, grabbing any villains he could find in the water and lifting them up into the air, slamming them together into a mass of limbs and squirming bodies. Some of them should be unconscious. Tsu, take Mineta to the shore and head back up the stairs to the entrance, okay? I'll deal with the villains. Tsu hesitated, but nodded, trusting her classmate. Don't worry, Karo. Make sure you stay safe. Izuku gave her a thumbs up, watching her dive into the water and drag Mineta away. Izuku looked up at the villains. Let's see, he muttered with a feral grin. 5 minutes later, and Izuku had restrained and knocked out every one of the villains in the flood zone. He was now peeking over the small ridge at the courtyard. Aizawa was being held down by a massive beaked monster. Izuku frowned. Aizawa's quirk didn't work on it. Either it's just that strong, or he muttered to himself. Izuku looked back up, right into the red eyes of the hand villain. The villain clamped his hand down on Izuku's forearm, making the fabric of his costume crumble and the skin beneath crack. The villain giggled to himself. Izuku laughed in the villain's face, grabbing the villain's forearm in his right hand. An eye for an eye, and the world goes blind. The villain's forearm began to turn gray, and small cracks began to inch across his skin. Izuku's smile was suddenly much more predatory. But how about an eye for something else? The villain jerked away, his eyes blown wide behind the hand on his face. He stared down at his forearm in horror, scrambling away from the green-haired boy. Nomu, he screamed, falling back onto his butt, clutching the decaying arm. Izuku was backhanded by the beaked monster and sent flying into the stairs at the other end of the courtyard. Midoriya, Aizawa shouted, getting up from the stained floor and chasing after the teen. Izuku pulled himself out of the new crater in the staircase, his skin stitching itself back together. He was laughing hysterically. Amazing. I already had powerful healing quirks, but this regeneration is on another level. Izuku exclaimed. And multiple quirks? What? Does someone evil have a quirk like mine? I wonder what kind of quirky things he can do. The Nomu, upon realizing Izuku wasn't dead, charged again. The hand villain watched in horror as Izuku was smacked into the wall, but didn't take any damage this time. Shock absorption? I've got a couple, but nowhere near as powerful as this. It's more of a shock displacement, though, now that I think about it. Izuku observed the shock waves passing out behind him every time the Nomu punched him. The strikes were getting weaker, though. He let out a low whistle. 3 super strength quirks? That's insane. And 2 ultra speed quirks? With this combination, you could be on par with All Might. The Nomu promptly collapsed under the strain of Izuku's quirk. Izuku glared down at the creature. 59 punches. An eye for an eye. The Nomu's upper half blew itself apart. The Misty Man took that chance to appear. Shigaraki, we must retreat. One of the students escaped and is calling for backup. The purple mist man hesitated. What happened to the Nomu? He asked. Shigaraki ran towards Kurogiri. Open a warp gate, Kurogiri. Get us out of here. He's like Sensei, he can steal quirks. Kurogiri's eyes widened, and he quickly made a portal, stepping through alongside Shigaraki, who threw himself through the portal. Izuku sighed in relief, healing his decayed arm. Midoriya, what the hell was that? Izuku looked up at Aizawa, noting his various injuries. I promised to explain later, but the short story is I have multiple quirks. Do you want me to heal your injuries? Aizawa paused warily, then relented, nodding his head. Izuku placed his hand on Aizawa's arm, willing his wounds to heal. It took a couple of minutes, but Aizawa was quickly good as new. Around half of the students are scattered around the facility, but they're all heading back now. Except Yaoyorozu, Jiru, and Kaminari. You might want to go and check out the mountain zone. Also, please keep my quirk status a secret. Aizawa nodded, racing off in the direction of the mountain zone. Izuku searched around inside himself. All right, an uber-powerful regeneration quirk. I'll merge that with my self-healing quirks. The strength boosters can go into the super strength pile, and the speed quirks into the super speed pile. Shock absorption. I'll jumble my other shock dampeners with it. Now I'll try activating them. Izuku activated his strength quirk, feeling his muscles bulge and tighten beneath his skin. Whoa, this feels like All Might level strength. Those strength enhancers were stronger than I thought. He muttered. Izuku let the strength quirk go, instead pulling his newest, most dangerous quirk to the surface. Some kind of decay? He murmured. Izuku put it away, letting the quirk sink back into his chest. He'd experiment with it later. The greenette walked up the stairs, coming to the top and walking the short distance to the huddled group of students. Is everyone okay? He asked. Uraraka shook her head. I don't know. Everyone else is still scattered around the facility, and 13 is badly injured. Izuku approached the space hero. I don't think it's really as bad as it looks. He began. The rest of the students looked expectantly at him. It's mainly her costume that was obliterated. Her back had small pieces pulled off, which would have put her in a great deal of pain, but nothing vital was damaged. There's a lot of blood, but that's just because of the amount of wounds, and she probably passed out from the pain. 13 will be fine. She'll be sore once she wakes up, but if anything she will probably be able to get up and heal in a couple minutes with Recovery Girl's help. It was at that moment that the door burst open. Do not be afraid, students. I am here. Aizawa is in the mountain zone helping the students there. I was in the flood zone. Everyone else got out okay. I don't know about the other zones though, All Might. They're the ones that really need your help. Izuku said. Thank you, young Midoriya. I shall return in a moment with your classmates. The hero ran off at an incredible speed. Not as fast as my speed quirk amalgamation though. All Might returned moments later with Tokoyami and Koda in his arms. Once they were set down, All Might disappeared again in a blur, off to rescue his remaining students. Izuku lifted the injured 13 with his quirk. Everybody go outside. The rest of the teachers will be here soon. but it's still safer to wait outside. All Might will bring the others up here and clean up the rest of the villains. Izuku's classmates nodded, getting up and walking to the wide-open doorway. Izuku levitated 13 through the door and set her gently onto the grass outside. He turned back to the staircase in time to see Aizawa, Yaoyorozu, Jiru, and Kaminari reach the top. All Might is here. He's helping the rest of the students. The only ones unaccounted for so far are Todoroki, Hagakure, Ojiro, Bakugo, and Kirishima. The rest should be outside at the moment. 13 is injured, but it's just a lot of flesh wounds. She'll be fine. Ida escaped earlier, and the rest of the heroes will be here shortly. Izuku said. Aizawa nodded, standing alongside Izuku as they watched the villains below get struck down by a furious yellow blur. The rest of the students had been cleared by Recovery Girl, and after a short interview from a detective, had gone home. Izuku was the last left behind, having sent his mother a text saying he'd be talking to the heroes a little while longer. The hero in question was Aizawa. The detective had already headed back to the USJ to speak with the officers there. Recovery Girl had been amazed that both Izuku and Aizawa had escaped the battle unscathed. Aizawa sat at his desk, staring at the green-haired boy before him. Izuku sighed, delving into his explanation. Absolute authority is not a quirk. It's an amalgamation of multiple quirks I've acquired from muggers over the years. Aizawa's stare widened. Absolute authority is composed of 12 telekinesis quirks and 16 telekinesis copy quirks. A copy quirk is where I don't want to take a quirk completely, but I clone its abilities. It's not as strong as the original, but it can be strengthened with use. Aizawa nodded, keeping silent for now. Technically, it is just one quirk, as all the quirks and copies that make it up can no longer be separated from one another. It can be added to with more quirks and copies, though. Aizawa decided to chime in. So it's basically the strongest telekinesis quirk the world has ever or will ever see. He asked. Izuku nodded. And it's one of my weakest quirks. I've got a strength enhancer, a super speed quirk, a hyper intelligence quirk, a shock nullification quirk, an ultra regeneration quirk, a swift healing quirk, and many other assorted powers and abilities. Every single one is made up of at least 10 of its kind, all fused together into the ultimate version of itself. Some of my newer or rarer powers are weaker, but only in the face of my true abilities. So your birth quirk lets you take or clone other people's quirks? Aizawa asked. Izuku sighed. Not quite. My original quirk, my birth quirk. The most powerful quirk in my arsenal. It was not registered, as I used it to clone my mother's quirk by mistake, which is why it is believed to be telekinesis by everyone else. My real quirk's name is an eye for an eye. You know the old saying? Aizawa nodded, scratching his chin. Didn't it go? An eye for an eye and the world goes blind? Yes. My quirk lets me take an eye for an eye. Or an eye for something else of my choosing, like a quirk. Remember, back in the USJ, when the Nomu just exploded? Aizawa nodded hesitantly. That was its 52 hits rebounding onto itself. It struck me 52 times with strength-enhanced punches. Once I took its shock displacement and regeneration quirks, I let the damage rebound. That was the result. So if I were to punch you right now, Izuku smiled, you'd be the one feeling it. And you'd get the injury, if I so desired. I can also use my shock nullification to just negate the damage and pain you deal to me, meaning you're pretty much punching yourself. The damage can also accumulate until I let it out. Aizawa sighed, sitting back in his chair. All right, problem child. I want you to make a list. Every single quirk you have, and the number of its kind inside it. The quirk's abilities and limits too. On my desk when you get back to school. I will show nobody but the principal. I needed to be able to train you properly. All right. Izuku nodded. That's fine. I don't mind the rest of the faculty knowing if they ask, but I'd like to keep it from the rest of the students until the sports festival. Aizawa chuckled. You want a big reveal? He asked. Izuku nodded, grinning. I'll get that list put together for you tonight. Izuku stood up from his chair, grabbing his bag. Aizawa rolled himself into his sleeping bag. See you next week, kid. I look forward to finding out just how powerful you really are. A few hours later, after much fussing from his mother and dinner, Izuku headed up to his room and got to work on his list. Absolute authority. 12 quirks, 16 copies. Weight limit, unknown. Can lift several buildings with ease. Strength enhancer. 25 quirks, 33 copies. Limits unknown. Several powerful quirks recently acquired. Stronger than All Might. Super Speed. 22 quirks, 37 copies. Limits unknown. Several powerful quirks recently acquired. 1,000 meters in an instant at last test. Hyperintelligence. 13 quirks, 20 copies. 100% scores on university papers. Solve equations. By Nezu in minutes. Shock nullification. 16 quirks, 2 copies. Limits unknown. Single powerful quirk acquired recently. Could take several full power hits from All Might before even feeling a tickle. Ultra regeneration. 21 quirks, 16 copies. Limits unknown. Single powerful quirk acquired recently. Can regenerate limbs in seconds with ease. Automatic. Swift healing. 10 quirks, 8 copies. Quickly heals target with physical contact. Stamina is transferred from user to patient. Entire limbs regenerated in minutes. Perfect harmony with energetic. Energetic. 43 quirks, 46 copies. Stamina quirk. Insomnia quirk in there too. Don't need to sleep when activated. Massive stamina pool. Never reached limits. Even when training for 24 hours without rest for testing. Perfect harmony with swift healing. Optics. 58 quirks, 44 copies. Vision enhanced. Can magnify distant objects. Night vision, thermal vision, X-ray vision. No limits. Explosive kinesis. 13 quirks, 198 copies. Made of fire quirks and explosive quirk copies. Can freely control flame and generate explosions from hands. With regeneration and shock nullification, normal drawbacks nullified. Note: all copies of same quirk. Hydrokinesis. 28 quirks, 33 copies. Freely control most liquids, not limited to water-based liquids. No drawbacks. Electrokinesis. 21 quirks, 22 copies. Freely control electricity and call down lightning at will. Can burn from overuse. Warp Gate. 0 quirks, 1 copy. Villain Kurogiri's quirk. Unusable. Warp Gate itself is an amalgamation of many quirks. May be able to use with further practice. Decay. 1 quirk, 1 copy. Shigaraki's quirk, both copied and taken in quick succession. Can decay objects when touched. Experimentation needed. 0 gravity. 0 quirks, 1 copy. Ochako Uraraka's quirk, copied during the battle trial. When all 5 fingers touch an object, the gravitational pull of the earth has no effect on it. Causes nausea, can be nullified with practice. Compatible with absolute authority. Combine or refine. Soar. 13 quirks, 13 copies. Flight quirk. Wing mutations optional. No limits. Erasure. 0 quirks, 3 copies. Aizawa Sensei's quirk, copied in class during intimidation tactic. Can erase a person's quirk by looking at them. Causes dry eye. Compatible with optics. Combine or refine. Note: I copy quirks on reflex. I can delete the copies if you want me to. Voice. 0 quirks, 12 copies. Present mix quirk, copied from the auditorium and English classes. Makes voice loud. Really loud. Sore throat if used for really long. Sixth sense. 24 quirks, 25 copies. Awareness and reflexive quirks. Area around user is always monitored, cannot be jumped or surprised by enemies. Blade. 10 quirks, 9 copies. Create blades anywhere on my body. Claws, horns, teeth, Wolverine claws, anything. Slightly painful. Telepathy. 5 quirks, 5 copies. Speak in people's minds, and vice versa. Hold conversations with people without opening our mouths. Headache for using too long. Compatible with absolute authority, but kept separate. Inventory. 1 quirk, 1 copy. I have an inventory. Limited space. Pocket dimension for things. Mainly keep school supplies and lunch money inside. That's why I don't have a school bag. Quirk note. 13 quirks, 20 copies. Read details of a person's quirk. Lie detector. 0 quirks, 3 copies. Detective Tsukashi's quirk. Cannot be lied to without my knowing about it. Testing needed. Mind control. 28 quirks, 28 copies. Never let a criminal go with a mind control quirk. Dangerous in the wrong hands. Take over a person's actions with a touch or a look. Limit: 20 people at once. Impression. 1 quirk, 1 copy. Can mimic or create any voice I want. Golem is fun. I just think it's neat. No known limits. Resistance: 34 quirks, 37 copies. Resistant to extreme temperatures, poisons, quirk effects, and mind control. Testing needed. Eye for an eye. Original quirk. Any damage received can be reflected on to the attacker. If harmed in any way, rather than dealing damage back, something else can be taken instead. Quirks or energy known options. Reverse is also true. Example: healed by recovery girl. Can strengthen her quirk by adding copy. No limits. Izuku leaned back at his desk. That had taken a while. He grabbed another piece of paper and wrote out a training plan for the next week off. Izuku walked into one a little early as to give Aizawa his list. He reached into his inventory and pulled an envelope addressed to Aizawa from it. Said hero rolled out from under his desk. That the list? He asked. Izuku nodded, handing it to his exhausted homeroom teacher. My mother and I are the only others who know about my true quirk. Also, I'd like to ask if you could withhold my quirk information from Principal Nezu until after the sports festival. Aizawa sighed, opening the envelope and reading through the contents, his eyes widening every few seconds. Can I ask why? Izuku chuckled. We know each other online, and I'm trying to win a bet. He'll figure out who I am during the festival, which means I win. Aizawa sighed, already contemplating the headache he was going to get. You already have zero gravity and explosion. Are you going to be copying any more of your classmates' quirks? Aizawa asked. Most likely. Izuku said. I tend to avoid mutations like Jiru's and Shoji's quirks, and mainly focus on emitter or augmentation types that can go unnoticed. I'm thinking about half hot, half cold, electricity, possibly engine, as I can keep the mutation hidden by burying that aspect beneath other speed quirks. Creation is a definite aim. It's an incredibly versatile quirk, no matter if it's a weak copy. Hardening would be good too. Invisibility could be useful alongside on voice. Sugar Rush doesn't go well with many of my quirks, so I might not copy Sada's quirk. Izuku muttered. Aizawa sighed, glancing further down the list. Erasure. He looked up to see Izuku's hair floating about, his eyes shining red. Yup. If a quirk is used on me, I can copy it too. Erasure has 3 copies, so it's about 1.5x as strong as your erasure, meaning that it requires slightly less effort to use, activates faster, and I can keep it up for longer. I can get rid of it if you want though, sir. I understand if you're uncomfortable with someone else in possession of your quirk. Izuku said. Aizawa shook his head. It's best if you have all the quirks you can at your disposal. In fact, I'll use my quirk on you from time to strengthen you up. Having another hero around that can negate quirks could be useful. No using erasure during the festival though. Izuku nodded, walking over to his seat as Aizawa studied the remainder of the list. Todoroki chose that moment to enter the classroom, silently taking his seat. The classroom quickly filled up soon afterwards, Uraraka and Ida approaching Izuku to chat as they waited for the first bell. All right, now that everybody is here, settle down, Aizawa said. He glared around the classroom, his quirk activated, watching everyone not seated scramble to their desks. His gaze passed over Izuku twice. Thanks, sir. As I'm sure you're all aware, the sports festival is coming up soon. A few people spoke up at that. The sports festival? After USJ? Are you sure we should still be doing this after the attack? Aizawa nodded slowly. We are only going on with the festival as a show of strength. Security will be significantly better than previous years. You have the next 2 weeks to train however you see fit. Unlike the previous week off, however, you will all have full access to UA's facilities and can spar together with quirks, as long as you are on campus. Are there any questions? Everyone shook their heads. Then you are all dismissed. If anyone needs help with training, go bother someone else. Aizawa rolled into his sleeping bag and under his desk in one swift movement. Izuku noted that he took the list with him, as well as an empty schedule of some kind. The majority of 1A decided to train together, and Izuku acquired engine, electricity, creation, invisibility, voice, hardening, and several more zero-gravity copies. After 2 weeks of sparring and training alongside the majority of his classmates, Izuku had ridiculously strong versions of his classmates' quirks. Engine did not require a visible mutation to aid his speed quirk, it augmented his amalgamation, improving the proficiency of every quirk mixed into one. Electricity greatly improved his electrokinesis. Creation went very well with his intelligence quirks, and allowed him to create large objects in a matter of seconds, using very few of his lipids. Invisibility could be turned on and off, and could affect different body parts and any objects Izuku was touching, including his clothes. Voice let Izuku understand and speak any language, not just the languages of animals. Hardening was the crown jewel of his classmates' quirks, however. Izuku could become an impenetrable wall for as long as he wanted. It was very difficult to actually move anywhere, but when he used hardening, Izuku could not be harmed. Aizawa, true to his word, had used erasure on Izuku a few times every day, quickly improving the Greenette's version of the quirk. Unfortunately, neither Bakugo or Todoroki wanted to train with the rest of the class, instead choosing to train their quirks alone, away from where Izuku could copy them. Inko helped Izuku improve absolute authority by bonking him with floating objects around the house. Izuku turned on his laptop, opening his emails. Hybrid Enigma. Tomorrow is the day of the sports festival. I know you are in 1A, however I do not know which student for certain. Analytical Bunny. I'll reveal myself to you tomorrow, but by then it'll be too late for you. Hybrid Enigma. Yayarosa Momo? Analytical Bunny. Nope. Hybrid Enigma. Drat. Very well, I concede our game. As much as it pains me to admit, you have bested me intellectually, Bunny. Analytical Bunny. Aizawa has some information on me for you tomorrow. He's going to give you my list at some point during the festival. You'll figure it out before then, though. Hybrid Enigma. I look forward to your performance. Would you care for tea over chess once the festival concludes? Analytical Bunny. I would like that. See you tomorrow, Enigma. Hybrid Enigma. Very well, Bunny. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.